Employee termination processes. Having to fire an employee is never an easy task. Sometimes, despite attempts of open communication and encouraging performance, an employee will need to be terminated from the company. One of the hardest aspects of preparing to fire an employee is to separate the emotions from the facts. Firing an employee should always be a last resort, so it is important that the manager has covered all other avenues possible before moving forward. Research has consistently demonstrated that when clear goals are associated with learning, it occurs more easily and rapidly. With that in mind, let's review our goals for today. At the end of this workshop, participants should be able to create employee performance plans, identify employees who should be terminated, establish effective termination meetings, know the do's and don'ts of firing an employee, be able to conduct exit interviews.
Effort only fully releases its reward after a person refuses to quit. Napoleon Hill.
An Employee Performance Improvement Plan, or PPP, also known as a Performance Action Plan, is a great tool to help employees that are struggling with performance while still holding them accountable for their past mistakes. A PIP can help managers and employees determine a pattern of performance and can identify areas that may need more improvement than others. Through feedback and one-on-one communication, PIP should guide the employee toward the right track and away from any poor performance and inappropriate behaviors. The first step to creating an effective PIP is to establish why the PIP is being implemented and what the employee should gain from it. Typically, PIPs are put in place when an employee is performing poorly. The PIP should be specific as to what areas need to change or improve and should provide an outline to guide the employee. The manager should discuss with the employee why their performance needs to change and what will happen if it does not. After the PIP has been fully explained and the benefits and consequences defined, the manager should ensure that the employee understands why they are being placed on the PIP and if they know what is expected of them. Once the employee has been notified of their placement on a PIP, the manager should ask the employee if they have any initial questions or have any feedback they'd like to offer up front. Some employees may wonder why they are on a PIP for certain behaviors and will need clarification on what actions are not working for them and what areas of behavior will need to change. The manager should always obtain some form of confirmation that the employee understands why the PIP is necessary and why they will need to participate. The manager should bring out the basic guidelines of a PIP and should explain to the employee why the PIP is being utilized for them. While some actions are created by the manager for the employee to follow, it is important that the manager include the employee in ways of creating solutions to the problem. Ask the employee how they think the problem can be resolved and how they perceive putting their plan into action. If the employee is unsure how to handle the situation or how to improve their problem, offer feedback and advice, but don't answer the problem for the employee. Allowing the employee to take part in their own PIP allows them to have a greater stake in the plan and encourage their confidence about undertaking the changes outlined for them. Managers know that a PIP is best used for creating improvement methods for employees that are showing poor performance in certain areas. PIPs are most commonly associated with employee problem areas. However, when discussing a PIP with the employee, it is important to also include forms of praise and positive feedback as well as problem areas. Acknowledge the employee's prior achievements and give credit to their previous positive behaviors. Let the employee know that while you can recognize the good work they have done for the company, their recent behavior or performance has caught your attention and needs to be corrected right away. Employees will be more likely to fully participate if they know that their positive qualities are being noticed by management and not just their negative aspects. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Joseph was reviewing one of his employees, Yvonne, and noticed a trend of poor performance on her telephone surveys. She was taking too much time to complete the survey and was not gathering enough information from the caller. Joseph called a meeting with Yvonne to assign her to a performance improvement plan, or PIP. Once in his office, Joseph reviewed the information he had with Yvonne and outlined what areas she needed to improve while on the PIP. Joseph made sure to compliment Yvonne on her great customer service skills and praised her ability to connect with the customer during her surveys. He asked her how she thought she could improve the problems she was having. Yvonne offered suggestions such as altering her script and learning better ways to lead the customer through the survey. Together, Joseph and Yvonne created a PAP that would help Yvonne improve her scores over the next 6 weeks. When finished, Joseph warned Yvonne that if she was unable to improve her scores within their time frame, further disciplinary actions would occur and could lead to her eventual termination.
One of the tests of leadership is the ability to recognize a problem before it becomes an emergency. Arnold H. Glasgow.
Every manager is familiar with how to identify high-performing employees and knows various ways to keep them motivated. However, many managers are unaware of how to identify employees that may need to be terminated from the company. When certain traits and behaviors become easy to recognize in problem employees, the manager will know right away who to eliminate from the team when necessary. At some point, an employee may develop some sense of entitlement during their career time with the company. Entitlement can manifest in several different forms, but has the same usual noticeable traits, such as overestimating talents or achievements, having an overbearing or demanding attitude, blaming others for personal mistakes, presenting a low sense of team loyalty, and a resistance to receive or give feedback. Typically, this is seen in either the younger generation, who are raised to always succeed, or in the tenure employees, who feel as though their many years at the company make them invaluable. While it is important for employees to feel confident in their duties, a sense of entitlement can damage the team from within. It is important to correct this problem in the beginning, or the employee may need to be removed from the team. When an employee is hired, they are expected to be able to perform certain job duties and functions. Most of them are even outlined in the interview. Many companies have a training period and some sort of probation period in which the employee has time to learn and adapt to their job roles. However, whether the employee is new or experienced, they must be able to perform their essential job functions. If an employee is part of the team, they must be able to work alongside coworkers and do the job they are assigned to do. If they cannot, for any reason, they can be terminated since they are no longer a functioning part of the company. Of course, it is wise to consult with a lawyer or a consultant regarding the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, to ensure the company is following all guidelines possible in the workplace. While some employees may need some accommodation to effectively perform their duties, they must still be able to essentially perform those duties. If they cannot, even with special accommodations, they can be terminated without legal recourse. The company and its employees are essentially a team in which all employees and departments depend on each other to perform correctly. Sometimes, the team has one member that is unable to work or function with the rest of the group. If an employee has behavioral problems, if they refuse to work with coworkers, or if they have a sense of superiority and attempt to boss around their coworkers, they can harm the team. Additionally, the employee that is not functioning well within the group is most likely contributing the least. These types of employees must be eliminated before they are able to have a negative effect on the team. While having employees that are confident and assure you that they can get the work done, be wary of the employee who will make promises but not deliver them. Unfortunately, these employees will often develop some form of inflated self-image and begin to believe that they can make large, boastful promises and then not follow through with them. The employee will make promises of performance, and when they cannot deliver, it could adversely affect the functionality of the team or department. Other employees are forced to pick up the slack, and deadlines may not be met on time. The behavior can be accredited to the need for attention or the thought that the sheer promise of something will benefit them. Whatever the reason, the employee will continue this behavior until they are stopped. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Kitty was having a meeting with her human resources representative because she wanted to fire one of her employees. Julie from HR asked Kitty what actions made her want to fire Tyler, one of the department employees. Kitty began explaining some of Tyler's behaviors, such as his recent development of entitlement, which made him become mean to other employees and cause tension among the group. Because of his behavior, he was unable to perform simple tasks or duties with his team, which was putting all of the members further behind in their work. When Julie asked what Kitty had done about the problem, Kitty told her of the various talks she'd had with Tyler and warnings regarding his false sense of superiority. Kitty told Julie that it was obvious to her that Tyler was no longer a functioning partner on the team and would need him to be removed before he further affects any of the other team members. Julie finished taking her notes and told Kitty she would help her begin the termination process at once.
Success or failure in business is caused more by the mental attitude than by mental capabilities. Walter Scott.
Sometimes it can be hard for a manager to admit when it is time to let an employee go. It is important to recognize various behaviors and red flags that an employee may display when they are not performing well with the rest of the group. But after several unsuccessful opportunities for improvement, the manager must realize what needs to be done. Whether your company is large or small, customers are the main component in keeping the business open and successful. In the business world, it is said that customers are hard to gain but can be easy to lose. Employees that do not share this belief will soon surface with their blatant disregard for the customer's needs. While the employee may work with the customer for a short period of time, they will not engage with the customer, be concerned with their needs, nor will they do what they can to keep the customer satisfied. The employee will most likely avoid or even ignore customers, pass them off to coworkers, or simply refuse to help when asked. Other employees can begin to pick up on this sense of disregard and come to believe it is acceptable behavior. Therefore, this employee must be terminated from the team, not only to improve employee conditions in the office, but to also gain and keep customers. A manager must be able to depend on their employees and trust that they are able to complete their job responsibilities with little supervision, without having to be micromanaged. However, when employees become unreliable, they fail to contribute and become a poor asset. Unreliable behavior, such as failing to show up for work, refusing to complete their daily work tasks, or being unwilling to help coworkers, will require disciplinary action. Many managers will offer the employee several chances to correct the behavior, such as giving warnings or some sort of demerit. But if the behavior persists, that employee will need to be terminated. Every company has some form of conduct policy which defines how employees should behave with each other and with customers and guests. Having a code of conduct not only helps protect the company, but ensures that the employees know what is expected of them by outlining expectations and acceptable behaviors. It is important to uphold this code of conduct for all employees, from the entry-level employee all the way to the CEO. If an employee decides to rebut this code of conduct for whatever reason, they may begin to act out of line by being rude, malicious, or even disrespectful. It is possible that their actions could influence other employees, causing poor employee morale, which in turn can result in poor customer service. When employees are at work, it is accepted that there may be some personal use of the company equipment, such as using the desk phone to make a personal call or using the company printer to print some personal documents. When the use of company equipment becomes excessive, it can put a strain on the company. When employees excessively use company equipment for their own use, it could cause the equipment to malfunction sooner, impede employee productivity, and could cause a liability issue if the equipment breaks. Every company should have a policy that addresses the excessive use of company equipment. If an employee ignores this policy and continues to use the telephone to make their own calls, use the copier to copy their own flyers, or even use the internet to access social media, they are becoming a hindrance to the team and to the company. If the actions do not cease after being addressed by management, then the employee may be terminated. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Alex has held a meeting with one of his workers, Karen. When she came into his office, Karen noticed Alex also had Helen in the room, one of the representatives from Human Resources. Alex started the meeting by greeting Karen and thanking her for coming in today. He then jumped to the reason he called her in. He explained to Karen that he has noticed her using more and more of the company's property for her own personal use, such as making personal calls and playing games on the internet. Alex also told her that she had become very negligent to the company's code of conduct. He has had complaints that she has been rude and disrespectful to other employees. Karen tried to interrupt and defend herself, but Alex stopped her. Alex reminded her of an earlier meeting they had about this issue and pointed out that Karen has failed to correct them. "I'm sorry, Karen," Alex said, "but we have to let you go from the company."
It's not what you pay a man, but what he costs you that counts. Will Rogers.
Firing an employee is never a pleasant experience for the manager or the employee. However, an effective termination meeting can help to somewhat diffuse the situation, allow the employee to keep their dignity, and ensure the manager is following all of the proper legal guidelines. The termination meeting should serve as a chance to terminate the employee discreetly while wrapping up certain matters such as returning keys or badges and negotiating some form of severance or benefit pay. The main person present in an employee termination meeting should be the employee's manager or immediate supervisor. They are most familiar with the reasons for termination, employee performance, and the employee's personality. In most cases, another attendee should be present to act as a witness or observer. This person is usually a representative from human resources, but could be another manager or supervisor. Sometimes, the employee will request the presence of this witness to ensure fair treatment during their termination process. Other times, the manager may request another person to be present to act as a buffer during the meeting, especially if they know the employee may have a temper or attitude problem. The employee may feel as though the company is ganging up on them if more than one person is present during their termination, so the manager should use their own discretion when making this decision. Once you have decided to conduct an employee termination meeting, you must decide where it will be held. Matters such as termination should be handled privately, meaning it should be out of sight and earshot of any other employees or coworkers. If possible, the meeting should be held in a location that does not alert other employees to what is taking place, perhaps a general conference room rather than the manager's office. In rare instances, a manager may decide to have the meeting in a location outside of work, such as a restaurant or coffee shop. Some managers feel as though this will reduce the chance of an emotional outburst or other embarrassing behavior. It is important that the employees still have the option to request a witness or to speak with their human resources representative, so the manager should weigh the pros and cons before choosing this option. Before a meeting is established, some managers may request another person to be present during the meeting, such as a human resources representative, to act as a witness and a buffer for both the manager and the employee. If the manager feels the employee may become violent or destructive, they can request a company security officer be present during the meeting. Security may be required once the meeting is over to escort the employee off the property. In this case, the manager can offer to have the employee's personal belongings sent home to them at a later date. In other cases, the employee will want to retrieve their own personal items from their desk. If so, the security officer should escort the employee directly to their desk, ensure they gather their belongings and not any company property, and escort them directly to the exit. Since the employee will obviously be upset after their meeting, security must be willing to deal with any forms of emotional outburst or backlash from the employee. Before letting the employee go and having them escorted off the property, it is important for the manager to review any form of final benefits package, including final paychecks, medical insurance coverage, and retirement, vacation pay. Discuss with the employee the need to complete any actions to obtain these benefits, such as signing a release for the company or taking part in the company's exit interview. Provide the information the employee may need for continuing certain services, such as phone numbers to COBRA, Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, or brochures for the company's retirement firm. Ensure that the employee has telephone numbers and contacts for the Human Resources Department in case they have any questions or concerns after they leave. Regarding the employee's last paycheck or final pay, the manager must decide the best way to take care of that and let the employee know how it will be handled. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Zelda was discussing an upcoming termination meeting with her supervisor, Kenny. She informed Kenny about an employee she was preparing to terminate, but wanted to make sure everything was in order for the meeting before she spoke to the employee. Kenny first asked Zelda who she will have present during the meeting. Zelda told him she will be the one conducting the meeting, but will also call Human Resources and request either a representative or security officer to be present as well. She told Kenny she will hold the meeting in the employee training room since it is farthest from the other employees and is not in use at this time. Zelda asked Kenny to help her gather the employee's final pay and extended benefits information so that she can give it to him once they are done with the meeting. Once I have that information together, I'll call the employee in for his termination meeting, Zelda said.
Although you may not always be able to avoid difficult situations, you can modify the extent to which you can suffer by how you choose to respond to the situation. Dalai Lama.
Believe it or not, there are right ways to fire an employee. Although firing an employee is never pleasant and can cause extreme anxiety, it is important to follow the correct steps to ensure fairness, dignity, and some form of understanding between the parties involved. When terminating an employee, it is important that the employee does not feel as though they are being attacked or belittled. While your words should not be sugar-coated, there are ways to incorporate positive language into the conversation to ease the employee's anxieties. To start, always be clear of your intentions during the meeting and avoid any form of small talk that is not related to the topic. Thank the employee for coming in. Using the words terminated or let go are the better options of phrases to use, as they do not leave room for interpretation. Speak directly to the employee and avoid any personal attacks or accusations. Do not use trite phrases such as, "This is hard for me to do," or "I'm sorry to have to do this." The employee will not be convinced and may take offense to such generalizations. One of the most common complaints from terminated employees is that they had no idea they would be fired or did not know the exact reason why. If the manager had only delivered positive feedback and shining reviews, then the employee will undoubtedly be confused as to why they are being terminated. Instead, review with the employee any and all past instances in which they had been called into the office, been written up, or disciplined for certain behavior or mistakes. This acts as a gentle reminder that there is a pattern in their behaviors and that the problem is not improving, which has led to their termination. On the other hand, it is recommended that while reviewing past feedback, don't forget to acknowledge any positive feedback or contributions the employee has made to the company. Although it may seem counterproductive, it is important to let the employee know that their contributions to the company are valued and that they did once serve as an important part of a team. When addressing termination with an employee, it is important to concentrate on the behavior that brought them to their termination. Do not make small talk about various instances or mistakes the employee may have made if it does not pertain to this behavior. The employee may try to steer the conversation away from their faulty behavior, so it is the manager's job to keep the conversation on track. Tell the employee that you have noticed XYZ behavior and have record of when it was first noticed and when you had the first discussion about it. Include any past warnings or demerits that were recorded due to this behavior or actions. Ensure that the most recent incident of the behavior has been reported, and the actions that prove the employee has failed to improve this behavior are listed. Before the meeting is over, the employee should be fully aware of what behaviors or actions they have committed that led them to their termination, instead of claiming they had no idea or were unaware of any certain problem. Many managers do not consider what day of the week or time of day they would terminate an employee. Some managers assume it does not matter when an employee is let go, but they would be wrong. Typically, an employee should be terminated as quickly as possible after the decision has been made, so as to not allow the situation or employee to linger in the company any longer than they have to. Fire the employee early in the week, such as on Monday or Tuesday. Firing an employee on a Friday only causes more frustration with the employee, since they are often angry to have worked all week only to be let go on Friday. The employee who is terminated on Friday has the entire weekend to stew about what happened and may want to return on Monday for a bigger fight, obtain some kind of revenge, or to simply wreak some sort of havoc. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Paul called Kimberly into his office in order to terminate her from the company. When she first came into the office, he told her right away that after reviewing her records and performance logs, she was not meeting the performance requirements set by the company. So he was letting her go. Paul specified that her call volumes and outbound surveys were not improving as they had planned during her PIP meeting. He explained that these two specific aspects of her job have been greatly affecting her performance scores. Paul thanked Kimberly for her service at the company and for being a loyal employee, but told her it was time to terminate her position here.
All things are difficult before they become easier. Thomas Fuller.
Having to fire an employee is a task every manager wishes they could avoid. Sometimes, no matter how often or how much you've spoken with the employee about their performance, they still do not believe they are able to be fired. But when the time comes, the manager must be prepared to deliver the news and wrap up any final business with the employee with dignity and tact. Terminated employees should never linger, even in their own termination meeting. When delivering the news, keep the information short and sweet. Avoid small talk or arguments. Tell the employee they are being let go for XYZ problem, but do not drag out the issue with details or fine points. By simply stating the facts and avoiding adding any emotions or feelings in the decision, it reduces the likeliness of the employee trying to object or become defensive. Then, move on to the next topics to cover, such as severance pay, additional benefits, or wrapping up loose ends. Depending on your employee's circumstance, they may be required to sign some form of release in which the employee acknowledges they were not terminated for any reason regarding race, religion, gender, age, or other form of bias. These releases are not created by the company, but are a legal document that can be drawn from a legal consultant. The release should be brought to the exit interview or termination meeting, whichever event occurs just before the employee leaves permanently. In some cases, the manager may be able to offer the employee some sort of incentive to quickly sign a release without delay. Some incentives include additional severance pay, a promise for positive reviews for future employers, or even free consultation with the company lawyer. Always consult with human resources to determine what is within the manager's realm to offer the employee, instead of running the risk of overpromising a reward without results. One of the worst problems to occur after an employee has been terminated is to have a gap in productivity and workforce. After the terminated employee has been removed from the team, the manager should gather employees together and give a short summary of changes that will occur and how they will go into effect. Inform the employees that the terminated employee is no longer with the company, but do not give any details or specifics. Instead, move forward with reassigning job duties and transferring the former employee's responsibilities. Taking care of this task right way helps reduce the creation of a rumor mill and will help eliminate any shock or disbelief if the former employee attempts to contact any current employees with negative emails or phone calls. When an employee is fired, one of the first actions they take is to file an unemployment claim to recover lost wages and payments. While this can be a time-consuming hassle for many companies, it is something that should not be handled lightly by the company. When the former employee files a claim, some form of a hearing will need to take place, and the manager of the employee will be consulted for questioning. All of the material gained is recorded by court records, so the manager must be careful that anything they say is not construed as a form of discrimination or proof of wrongful termination. In most cases, the employee is rewarded benefits regardless of what comes from the hearing, so it is better if the manager and company do not fight the unemployment claim with the employee, but simply do what is required for the courts and let the decision and effects afterward come from them, not you. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Tim began the day washing the dishes because none of them were clean. After 20 minutes, he was able to make his breakfast. He was running late, so he left his breakfast dishes in the sink. He arrived at work and found a stack of papers on his desk waiting to be filed. He ignored the papers and went straight to work. He followed his rigid schedule and left his office a mess with more papers to file and a used coffee cup on the desk. Reports and unfinished projects were piled around his office. When he arrived home, Tim ate dinner and was too tired to clean up after himself. He watched television instead. He did have to take the garbage out because he missed the last 2 trash days and the can was overflowing.
Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. Martin Luther King, Jr.
One of the most helpful tools when preparing to fire an employee is the use of a termination checklist, which is usually covered during a termination meeting. This list helps the employer to thoroughly cover any loose ends before the employee is let go, such as returning keys or badges, alerting human resources of the change, and deleting the employee's access to the system. Without the checklist, the manager may forget one of these items. As soon as it has been determined that an employee will be terminated, the manager should notify human resources. Notifying human resources allows the manager to consult with any legal counsel if needed, gather information regarding remaining employee benefits, such as final paychecks, vacation time, etc., and schedule a time in which a representative can be present during the termination meeting. Also, this will get the ball rolling on cleanup after the employee is gone, such as deleting them from the company system, stopping any form of payroll, and notifying any outside benefit companies, insurance, retirement, etc., that the employee is no longer part of the company. As soon as it is determined that an employee will be terminated, the manager should notify the company's network administrator or director of information technology to remove the employee from the entire system. The employee's access to the company systems, computer files, telephones, and even of building entry, such as a key code or badge, should be removed. The IT department can enable the employee's accounts to be rerouted to another system, such as the manager's accounts, so that any current information regarding projects or clients is not lost. The manager will need to discuss with the IT department exactly which areas the employee worked in so that they are able to delete the employee from all systems and not leave any of their information active in the system. Employees being terminated are required to return any company property, such as building keys, badges, computers or tablets, mobile phones, or even any printed company materials. These materials are considered company property and should not be allowed to leave with the employee. In some cases, human resources or IT may need to be consulted at the time the property is returned to ensure it is still in working condition and has not suffered any form of damage. Although system passwords are part of the IT department, the employee will need to notify the manager of their system passwords before they leave. While the employee's accounts will be deleted from the network, the manager will need to access the employee's accounts to access computer files or telephone messages temporarily until IT can reroute the employee files. Some terminated employees may be entitled to payments for their unused benefits or some form of extenuation of them. For example, many companies pay up to a certain amount of vacation or sick time that has not been used, or health insurance coverage can be extended through programs such as COBRA. During some point of the employee's termination meeting, they should be presented with a benefits letter, which is designed to outline the status of the employee's benefits upon their termination. This letter should include information on all of the employee's benefit types, such as health, life insurance, retirement accounts, and any form of expense or savings accounts. The benefits letter should also include information on who to contact regarding any questions about the employee's benefits, including human resources or insurance companies. Common benefits include vacation sick pay, health insurance, retirement, unpaid debt owed to the employee, such as reimbursements. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Jacob was consulting with the team supervisor, Rose, while preparing for their termination meeting for their employee, Scott. Jacob and Rose began to prepare a checklist of items for the meeting to make sure they have all of their bases covered. First, Jacob said he had already notified human resources so they know about the meeting. Next, Rose said she had called the IT department to have all of Scott's system access terminated, as well as any badges or building keys deactivated. She did make a note that these items would need to be retrieved during their meeting. Lastly, Jacob was able to compile a benefits letter for Scott to take with him that had all of the information he needed about continuing his health insurance and how to review his life insurance policy. "I guess the only thing left to do is call him into the office for a talk," Rose said.
It isn't making mistakes that's critical, it's correcting them and getting on with the principal task. Donald Rumsfeld.
When preparing to fire an employee, some of us flash back into the movies where the boss walks in, tells the employee they're fired, and it's over. But that is not how it works in the real world. There are many incorrect ways to fire an employee. These methods can cause anxiety or embarrassment to the employee and the manager, but can also leave the company open for a lawsuit regarding harassment from management or even wrongful termination. One of the most common complaints from terminated employees is that they were not given any warning of any wrongdoing or wrongful behavior. From this, the employee also states that they were not given the chance to fix their behavior or improve performance. A manager should never fire an employee without allowing some attempt for the employee to recognize their behavior or mistake and given the chance to correct it. One of the most common ways to do this is to provide the employee with a performance improvement plan, or PIP. Through a PIP, the employee can gain access to additional training as well as additional tools and supplies to improve their performance over a period of time. The PIP allows all changes, behaviors, and actions to be recorded, so the PIP can be used at any point in which the employee's behavior comes into question. In a termination meeting, it can be used as a main tool to show an employee's lack of improvement or behavior correction. When a manager terminates an employee, it should always be done in a face-to-face meeting. This allows the employee to ask questions and allows the manager to give all the information they have to offer. As well, any releases or final paperwork that should be signed will be done so in person. An employee should never be fired via an electronic method, such as telephone, email, text messages, or even voicemail. These methods leave too much room for error and can cause confusion. In many cases, the message may not be properly delivered or observed, and an employee can become embarrassed when they show up for work after missing a voicemail message saying they had been fired. At the very least, all employees deserve the respect and dignity to be told about their termination in person. Using an electronic method only shows cowardice from the company and belittles the employee. Unfortunately, many terminated employees will become angry enough to sue their former employer once they are let go. During any termination meeting, it is important that the manager have another employee present to serve as a witness and provide alternate documentation or testimony if needed later. In most cases, this witness is someone from the Human Resources Department, since they serve as a witness for the manager and can offer the employee additional information regarding benefits and references. Generally, human resource staff has more experience firing and hiring employees, so they can offer some assistance to the manager when needed. If a member of human resources is not available, a security officer or even department supervisor can also serve as a valuable witness. The goal is to have another person in the room besides the manager and employee that is being terminated. Before deciding to terminate an employee, the manager will have conducted research of the employee's file and made note of things such as previous disciplinary meetings, performance improvement plans, and any past achievements in the company. One thing the manager should be prepared for is when the employee asks why they are being fired. When asked this question, avoid providing long, drawn-out reasoning or rationale. At any point, the employee will argue the point or become defensive, believing this may reverse or at least delay your decision. Instead, offer a short and summarized answer without placing any form of blame or accusation. Stick to something as simple as, "We're letting you go because asterisk insert event here asterisk, and that is not acceptable," or "It goes against our company policy regarding asterisk instance here asterisk." Simply state the facts you have and avoid indulging in emotional responses, such as, "I'm sorry to do this," or "I wish things could be different." Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Maria and Jack were discussing the prospect of having to fire one of their employees, Susan. Jack said he wanted to be sure that all of their bases were covered before they actually filed to terminate her. First, he asked Maria if Susan had ever been put on a PIP. Maria looked in Susan's past records and found that she had been put on a PIP, but minimal improvement was documented. Jack then determined that they would need a witness present when speaking with Susan, so he made a note to contact HR and have a representative come down. "Of course, the meeting will be held in person, but we should have the meeting in the conference center," Maria said. She knew the conference center was not being used and would be a fair location. Finally, Jack said they should finalize any reasoning or decisions as to why they are letting Susan go. "She's being let go due to a lack of performance," Jack said. "It's as simple as that, so we mustn't go into any forms of drawn-out reasoning or banter with her."
Making distinctions is part of learning. Nancy Gibbs.
Once an employee has been told they are fired, many managers believe that is the end of the process, but there are many steps to cover while the employee is still on the premises. After an employee has been let go, it is important that they are escorted off of the property as soon as possible to avoid a scene in the office or to avoid the risk of the employee damaging any company files. Generally, employees never believe that they can be fired or that they should ever be fired. So when the occasion arises, they are, of course, in shock. It is important for the manager to let them know that the decision to terminate them is final and cannot be changed. Some employees may believe they can bargain their way back into their job or can offer to change/improve/do extra to stay with the company. Inform the employee that the decision is final and cannot be changed. Remember that the termination meeting is meant to inform the employee of a decision that has already been made and is not a discussion forum. Remember to have a witness on hand to help support your decision. It is often joked that terminated employees will sneak out a stapler or company pens when they leave, and it is often overlooked by the company and counted as a loss. However, company items such as computers or tablets, mobile phones, name badges, door badges, and any form of access key should be returned to management at once. The employee should turn over the items they have on hand during their termination meeting. If needed, the manager can escort the employee to their desk or work area to retrieve any remaining property. In the rare instance that company property is outside the office, such as in the employee's car or at their home, it is important to set up some form of arrangement to have these items returned immediately. Some employers will hold the employee's last paycheck or severance pay until the items are returned safely. The termination meeting is held in a location away from the employee workplace and is held privately. However, the employee will want to return to their desk to retrieve their personal items before leaving. Of course, these employees can become visibly upset and can possibly cause a scene in the office. To reduce upsetting other employees, the manager can offer to have the terminated employee's belongings sent to their home or can have the items packaged and arrange for the employee to pick up at a later time or date. This method also allows for the manager and IT department to ensure that they can save any files or projects before the employee has a chance to delete or destroy them. If the employee insists on picking up their property themselves, only allow them access during off-peak work hours, such as during a lunch period, after hours, or even weekend days. This allows the employee to keep their dignity and avoid embarrassments, as well as ensure the manager that the terminated employee will not act out an attempt to create chaos in the office. Always remember to personally escort the employee to and from their desk, regardless of the time of day. The manager has already established that an employee will not be allowed access to their work area unless they are accompanied by the manager or other official, and it is only long enough to retrieve their personal belongings. In addition, terminated employees must never be allowed to access their information system, such as their work computer, voicemails, or even email systems. The employee should not be given the chance to access the system and delete files, change passwords, or even lock up projects and resources. It is recommended that the manager contact a member of IT just before an employee's termination meeting to ensure the employee's access has been limited and then deleted. Once the employee has been terminated, they should not be able to access any of their former systems, either in the office or from home. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Peter has called Mary into his office. When she arrived, right away, Peter told her that she was being fired from the company. Peter reviewed some of her past records, but told her that recently she was not receiving good scores for her job duties. "Isn't there something I can do to let me stay?" Mary asked. Peter told her that the decision was final and that the company would not change their minds. He informed Mary that her system access had already been deleted, so he told her not to bother trying to check her email or retrieve any phone messages. The only thing Mary requested was to retrieve her personal items from her desk before she left the premises. Peter called the company's security officer and requested for an office escort. Peter knew the security officer would keep Mary from overreacting in front of other employees, but would also ensure that she did not take anything from the desk that was considered company property.
Every exit is an entry somewhere else. Tom Stoppard.
An exit interview is typically completed when an employee leaves voluntarily or is part of a company layoff. However, the interview can be done with employees that have been terminated, if completed correctly. It is important to remember that the employee will mostly likely be angry or hurt, so the manager must tread lightly and ensure they have another manager or human resource representative present at the time of the interview. The exit interview is seldom conducted by the manager that is terminating the employee, but in the majority of cases is completed by a member of human resources. This allows the meeting to remain fair and unbiased for the employee. For terminated employees, this interview should be conducted right away. Some managers will perform this exit interview shortly after informing the employee of their termination. Others may allow the employee to gather their belongings from their desk before bringing them back to their office to finish the process. Every company is different as to how they conduct their exit interview. Smaller companies may be willing to conduct one-on-one personal exit interviews with the employee and gain the information they want firsthand. One-on-one exit interviews are typically used for shorter exit interviews that do not have a large number of questions to ask. Other companies, such as larger corporations, are more likely to use some form of printed survey or questionnaire for the employee to complete and return to human resources. The printed forms allow the company to ask a number of questions and leave spaces for the employee to write any comments or remarks if desired. One of the main purposes of an exit interview is for the manager to gain information about the company and its working conditions. The interview should serve as an opportunity to obtain information about what your organization is doing well and what isn't working so well. For the most part, exit interviews allow the employee to speak freely without a fear of consequence, so they are more likely to be frank and will not sugarcoat their opinions. While some of these opinions may have hints of distaste or anger, there is truth beneath their emotions. Before scheduling the exit interview with the employee, the manager should work with the human resources representative regarding what questions should be asked of the employee. Keep in mind the employee may only be open to answer a limited number of questions, so focus on what aspects of the job or position you are wanting answers about the most. Also include alternate questions to the employee if they do not offer much information on one topic, or if they simply decline to answer. In many companies, employees are unaware that they may be asked to participate in an exit interview if they decide to leave, or if they are terminated. Because of this, the task may catch them by surprise when it is suddenly presented to them. One method of preparing the company culture for a process such as this is to introduce it in the company policies, such as policies regarding hiring, firing, and resignations. This introduces the topic to current employees and gives them a chance to ask questions or seek clarification early on. It is important for managers to inform employees of the purpose of the exit interview, should they ever need one, and explain to the employee that what they share is viewed as helpful information. Managers should work with human resources to establish a guideline or template for exit interviews for the company to use and share with employees. Employees should be aware that the information they share in an exit interview is helpful, but does not guarantee what they say or suggest will be implemented or create some radical form of change. After an exit interview is completed, the manager and human resources representative should come away with a sufficient amount of feedback from the departing employee. From here, the manager should sort and organize the different advice and feedback given by the employee and determine what areas can be improved. Sometimes the employee offers feedback on ineffective ways of communication in the office or advice about ways to improve productivity during the day. The manager must choose the best way to execute these new suggestions and should begin by consulting with current employees and teams as to what improvements are needed. Sometimes the answer is right under their nose, but the employee is too afraid to speak up. Managers should be wary when accepting feedback and advice from departing employees. While some can offer insight about the position, others may only offer their thoughts to serve as insults or general negativity about coworkers, managers, or even the company itself. Managers should never encourage this type of talk from the employee and should not encourage them to share such negativity. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Angela has just finished speaking with Jose and has let him know that he is terminated from the company due to his recent poor performance in his department. Jose was visibly upset, but Angela asked if he would be willing to take a few minutes and answer some of her questions and complete the exit interview outlined in the company policy. Jose agreed. Angela noticed that his department had many employees who were not performing well, so she asked Jose why he thought that was. Jose told her that communication with management was very difficult in the department, and many of the employees had daily questions that they could not get answered. He also told Angela that, in his opinion, the training was not very effective for new employees and should be extended in some way. After speaking with Jose for a while longer, Angela was able to gather a lot of helpful information that she could take back to the teams and review with team leaders. Angela thanked Jose for his time and his feedback and wished him good luck before he left the building. Although this workshop is coming to a close, we hope that your journey to understanding employee termination processes is just beginning. We wish you the best of luck on the rest of your travels. You don't lie to your own doctor. You don't lie to your own attorney. And you don't lie to your employees. Gordon Bethune. Take time to appreciate employees and they will reciprocate in 1,000 ways. Bob Nelson. Employees are your most valuable assets. They are the heart and guts of a company. This doesn't mean that from time to time you aren't going to do what is good for the company. Carlos Gosen. You have to be responsible when you're running an organization, and firing people who are your friends is part of that responsibility. Ben Horowitz.